And I don't think you
Or that's
didn't have it on. Yeah.
Turn on the wall at that picture. You can reach out to the things.
Yeah. It does for every side media. I. So we need to come see those. Just. Yeah. I went through the future. You showed the front of the classroom. Good job.
So, just so everybody knows, after, I'll try to do it tonight, but probably tomorrow, because I want to send out the recording of this Zoom call, because this is a requirement for teachers to retain their funding for CTE, to, attend one of these advisory meetings. So since this is the only graphic design one all year, actually, it's the first one we've had in years. If a teacher were to watch the recording, then that counts as them attending in this, post-COVID era that we're in here. So just so you guys know, you will get an email with a link to this, because this has a treasure trove of links within this document so that you guys can kind of go places and see information. Because for the sake of time, I'm not going to be diving deep into market data, on this, in this career cluster today, because we just don't have the time. So, hosted by Hononegah. So if you guys were to click the big H, you would go to their website. If you click the CNC, you would go to our website. So I'm not doing this on my laptop right now. Otherwise, I'd go there and I'd show you what it was, but it's all the way back there.
You want me to post?
That's okay. Some of them I might, but
I can post it back there.
does this remote reach all the way to your desk?
The fun?
Yeah.
I'll be the quicker.
Okay. All right, so we're going to start today with a couple of informational kind of things, and then there's going to be some opportunities for us to kind of discuss as a group what kinds of things we would like to see happen, or what kind of ideas we have. So first, some kind of important terms that we need to kind of cover with each of these advisories is what is a concentrator and what is a credential. So a concentrator is a student that takes more than one class in a pathway. So whether that's in graphic communications, the radio and TV broadcasting tech, or the commercial photography, they are taking a sequence, okay? So that student counts as a concentrator, which helps funding for a school. So if you were to click this pathways button, that will take you to the matrix, which is showing you all three of the pathways in this career cluster, which is the arts, audiovisual, and communications cluster. The credentials, which is what we're going to talk about first today, is that certificate or that piece of evidence that a student has mastered a skill in this pathway. And sometimes that, credential can be the difference between hiring this person over this person. So we'll talk about that a little bit. There's an FAQ on what a credential is according to the state of Illinois for students that are in high school. And then there's also a document down here on tips on, keeping track of credentials. CNC, we do actually collect credentials in both the fall and the spring. So as far as I know, Hononegah is the only school that does the credentialing in Adobe. Yeah, so So if anybody else jumps onto that, then we'll be asking you for how many kids got the Adobe, Illustrator credential. I don't even know if that's what it's called anymore.
They just tell
Yeah, so so credentials are really important in many of the pathways, in many of the career clusters. So as far as ISB is concerned, so that's the Illinois State Board of Education. They have this document. I don't know if you guys have all heard of this, but they have this document going where they're collecting all of the potential credentials for students. Obviously Adobe is kind of winning the race because they have a variety of, credentials for students, but also there's a Final Cut Pro, or there's an Avid or Autodesk. I wasn't really sure what either of those was, but it's on this massive spreadsheet that ISB is keeping track of. So in the state of Illinois, there are schools that give these, but I would say majority, I'm sure you would agree, give the Adobe credentials out. So if you guys grabbed a sheet of paper, which is like the taking notes kind of piece of paper, our first discussion is, are these credentials valued by employers? Is this something that you would say choose one candidate over another? And if not, what is the answer to this pathway? Because I know that as a former graphic design teacher, Matt here and I taught together at Jefferson, and we had an advisory where we had employers telling us, yeah, I don't really pay attention to that. We would rather see a portfolio where kids are talking about their process or their concept, right? So is credentialing valued? I hope it is in some cases, right? Because I know my kid went here to Hononegah, he got the Illustrator certificate and he's working in IT right now, but approached his boss and said, hey, I could help out with, designing a new chip bag for our company. And the boss was like, you can? So, it kind of like played out for him. It paid off, right? So, so that's our first discussion. So if anybody wants to open up with ideas or comments on that, we could start there.
I would say for me, it's kind of a tiebreaker. If I have, 2 or 3 applicants and portfolios look strong, like I'm gonna pick the one where I know they use the tools that I use. Like I'm an Adobe shop.
Yep.
So it's like, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, like I've got this Adobe certificate, the other person says, no, like School of YouTube, self-taught, I would say the one with the certificate's probably gonna get the job.
Okay.
All other things being.
And I think that's a safe consensus. I'm assuming.
So, yeah, but it's like portfolio first.
Yeah. Portfolio first and then
Certification.
certification. Yeah. Because do you think that it like shows perseverance in a way? Like, okay. Portfolio goes hand in hand. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
We understood. Showed there in a different program as well, which is trainable versus no.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. Okay.
I would also assume a greater depth of knowledge of the software, having certification rather than just like, yeah, like I have an eye for this, and so I can put together some good portfolio pieces, but like especially with like video production, there is a lot of technical aspects to it and kind of expectations when I deliver a piece to a TV station. It's gonna like hit these.
Oh, sure.
If it doesn't hit these marks, then it doesn't matter how good the piece is.
Right. So I know that in Adobe, especially when you package your work, knowing how to present your work or the deliverable, to the client is super important. So, and I remember when I got my credential with all of the Adobe things, I remember it being like, wow, you really do need to know the software because it'll ask you some of the most obscure things, to do. So, all right. Does anybody have any other comments on the credentialing?
Is there any component for Adobe Audition, like I see basically every other Adobe product. It's like part of the video production.
Okay.
Okay,
You'll notice it's certified associate visual communication. Or
Yeah.
communication. There's a couple of up there that actually are certifications that you get when you master too. So master both Illustrator and Photoshop, then you get a certification. And then I think there might be a couple like sure what the rich media communication is. I'm assuming that might have something to do with specifically like integrating then maybe Premiere Pro or something like that within that. So some of those certifications are kind of like a.
Being at associated video communication. If Audition is a piece of that, it's like that's the tool I use for all of my audio cleanup.
Hey Carrie, can you click this button here? This is VCTE page.
And one of the things that I would like a certification too is like when I was at Guilford, we had a conversation often. But one of the things I really like about the certification now is it's specifically on the tools, but doing it proper. Because sometimes when you're self-taught, use these tools, but it's not in the proper way, and you're not things that have like that.
Is my link not working? Oh, there we go. So this is just especially for you teachers that are in the room, if in case you don't visit this page very often, because I know ISB's website is got a lot of complex stuff, but if we scroll down to the bottom, there is actually a place where you can see all of the credentials that are available. So yeah, go a little bit further. So here, industry recognized credentials. They have, if you click on it, it's going to download a spreadsheet, which is constantly being updated. So that list that you saw in my presentation is not an exhaustive list by any means. So there's probably a lot more certifications out there. But this credential list here is what has been reported to the State Board of Education as far as like what teachers are actually giving out in the state. So it is not a completed list. They're working on it. They're adding to it all the time. But it does have every single career cluster. So you have to find the arts and communication one and take a look at it. So that's where I grabbed those from.
You grab all of them for the art.
Yeah, there's a couple that were really, really weird that I didn't grab, but if we wanted to take a look at it, we can. But yeah, mostly Adobe is what's being reported as far as, you know, being given out to students. Okay, so we can go back to the thing. They're not. No. Okay, so all right, so we have a good understanding of the credentials and why they might be important for students to get those. So if you're a teacher that doesn't quite give those out yet, maybe that's something to consider, and CNC can help you pay for those. So you don't have to come, it doesn't have to come out of your school budget. Okay, let's see. So we're going to talk technical skills next, and we'll I'm sure have some interesting conversations with this one. So before we talk technical skills, one of the things that the State Board of Education now expects is that across all CTE, yes, even graphic design, that we focus on math, science, and reading and writing. Okay. Now this is CNC's report of how we did in 2021-22 school year. Okay. Which is basically what our funding is based on for this year. Okay. Now let's keep in mind that we were still recovering from COVID. So in some areas we're not doing so hot. Okay. But it is an expectation, and these are based on CTE concentrators. So those are those students, remember, that have taken more than one class. So the places that we are having a real struggle is how are the CTE kids scoring on standardized tests in reading, writing, math, and science? And teachers, you might be thinking to yourself, what the heck? I got to teach graphic design or photography or film editing, and I got to teach English, math, and science. What? Well, I'm here to tell you that no, that is not the expectation, but we do want our kids to perform better in those areas because we're really deficient here, here, and here, right? And so every time that happens, yours truly has to write a report on why that's happening. And I don't know why that's happening, but I have to explain it somehow, right? So I got to thinking that the best thing for us to focus on is disciplinary reading and writing and disciplinary math and science, okay? So our next discussion that will probably, you know, if you guys wanted to grab one of those pieces of paper, because I think this could lead to some interesting ideas. Reading and writing is happening in graphic design. Reading and writing is happening in photography and film editing, right? Math is also happening, okay? But it might not look like reading a novel. It might not look like doing an algebra problem, right? It might not look like doing a science experiment. But all of those things are happening. It's just happening in a different setting, okay? In a different way. So we're just, you know, it's according to the discipline that it's in, right? So I want to give you guys a couple minutes to think about this because it's kind of a huge issue. But if we can hook kids in with the disciplinary reading and math and science, then maybe they will improve their scores just, you know, because they have now gotten some, you know, gotten interested in something, right? So in your industry, in your profession, okay, and so business partners, employers, you kind of know what I'm talking about too. This stuff has to happen. So what happens in your pathway, in your career, in your profession, that is disciplinary reading? Is it, you know, like when we talk about, I have some examples here. So, you know, in a medical science pathway would be like reading a medical chart, right? That's reading in that profession. Okay, you have to know how to do that. In a culinary course, math might look like doubling a recipe or even making it so it's good for catering, right? That's a lot of math. Or science, you know, think about cosmetology pathway. Science might be found in, you know, when they're doing, you know, the colorist, you know, section of, you know, cosmetology. So they have to know how to mix those things. So what is reading and writing? What does math look like? And what does science look like in your pathway or in your career or your profession, right? So I want to give you guys a couple of minutes to think about that, and then we'll kind of talk about that as a way to rethink the traditional, got to read a novel, got to do math problems, got to do a science experiment thing, right?
So they need to understand how graphic design, all of those tools and pages, but they're directly in communication with the client.
Yes.
So of course, we can write it back and forth, communication skills. The math, they get to learn how to use tape, but they're going to go on a job site and something, bring that back, add this and that. That frame is to file setup for size, so that when installers go back up job site install these plans on that wall, right? For size.
Right.
So you can get deeper than that. We can get a little more creative with some of these your projects we get into, and then you're using your technical skills to then draft full say like a plan together, measurements, and then illustrate that in writing and send that out by to guys. So there's a lot involved, and they don't, like you said, it's not a novel, it's not this, it's just being very in tune with like you are explaining something that is directly related to the other product. So.
It totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
say for, a TV station, one thing we use is obviously the premium. But when we have assigned a spot that you need to sit, to find out, read about whatever the category is that you're doing. And certainly, the writing comes from script writing, blog writing, whatever.
Right.
That client is actually looking for, we have some flat writing, so it really is inclusive of that. Not so much on the science level
No,
of things that, in regular production that we do, but certainly, in math and timing and figuring out ins and outs and all of that sort of thing. There's some math involved.
One thing I forgot also is that all of those measurements directly relate to cost of goods.
oh, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So
right,
staying in there, you could lose money and just the detriment for that you're prepared.
sure, yep,
Yeah, it's a lot of script writing, proposal writing, you know, bigger projects. It's like you need to be able to communicate something in words that you see in your head as a finished video project. For the reading and writing component, for math and science, it's not so much as working equations, but like in Adobe Premiere, it doesn't give you 12.5 seconds. It gives you 12 seconds and 12 frames if you're running a 24 frame per second
right,
video. So it's like constantly kind of understanding that this many frames is this fraction of a second if you're trying to time out a video production or get something to 30 seconds in 0 frames.
time is your math.
And knowing, like the inverse square law, like if I move, you know, half the distance, something, it gets 4 times brighter, 4 times louder. And if I move, you know, put that down to a third of the distance, it's 9 times brighter, 9 times louder. So like having that understanding when it comes to lighting your subject, sound design, you know, those kinds of elements. And then for even like lenses, understanding how light works through the lens, why a larger aperture, longer focal distance will impact your image in terms of depth of field and bokeh
Wow.
and things like that.
So there's a lot of math and science going on. and
There
it's-
is like sit down,
Right.
and run number, it is like having an intuitive sense of how I make these changes on set and it's gonna impact the final product when it gets down to that. Or even just like the 30-30 rule where it's like if I'm gonna have a 2 camera setup, I need to either be 30% closer or further away, or I need to have a 30-degree offset from camera 1. So it doesn't look like I'm just trying to cover up a bad shoot or a bad edit. It like looks intentional. So like I don't know how that pertains into their standardized testing with math and science, but I think it's kind of like a practical exposure to something that you might learn in a science classroom. It's like, well, how does this actually impact it?
I had no idea. That's mind blowing.
Reading instructions for
Mhm.
a job ticket. It's important to follow every instruction and reading it properly. It's not a lot
Yes.
of reading, but it's a small amount of important reading. Math, figuring out sheet yields, and if we're running, you know, there's a lot of programs that do the calculations for you, but sometimes you still need to understand what's going on.
Right,
Maybe we're taking a 50 by 100 sheet, cutting it into 4 smaller sheets, and then on that press sheet, we're getting 10 up. So if you need to print 500, not only do you need to know how many press sheets you need to know how many stock sheets and
Right.
Cutting them down, processing them. Math, same thing. You know, sometimes building stuff to scale or a 50% scale if it's too large. Counting, you'd be surprised how many people, you know, even in the packing department where counting is a struggle. So just even counting would be important. And science, it's not a proper experiment, but anyone who's done any color corrections
Mhm.
or pre-press itself is kind of a big science experiment, making sure everything's lined up properly. Or I would say troubleshooting, if you
Yeah.
have some transparency issues or something's not printing right or the cut file isn't working right, there's a lot of troubleshooting and methodically figuring out what's gonna make this print right or cut right or get it out.
Awesome.
That's just a good pointer, you know. I see a lot of digital equipment, see a lot of, I'm very happy to see the work, but. I guess my take is now better, we're teaching a lot of computer and behind desk and that sort of thing. We're needing more production type oriented folks that also cross over. So, you know, it's great, they have this experience, but where are the kids that don't really wanna take it to that path where they're gonna work for like a new studio? I don't know, a big movie outfit or something. It's struggle to get that path. Well, they have this experience, so what about teaching them some real world production experience, installation experience, which will lack, I think, in that area.
Yeah.
You see that coming.
And I'd say too, something that I experience every day, I'm usually in the, on the computer. Where in Illustrator, everything has nice decimal points, so you have it however you want. You go out back, most tape measures or measuring instruments are not digital, it's fractions. So understanding fractions, understanding 3/8, and you pretty much have to have those memorized.
Teach that,
Yeah.
and get away from it. When I first started teaching, every week, get a 16 quiz, and the whole class had to pass it at once. Then I would quit getting it. It would take me an average of 8 to 12 weeks of a semester to get the entire class to pass. For a big visual, put it right there. Just there. Yeah. Maybe we'll go back to the weekly test too. Like, I don't mind it doing it. I personally think it's a skill you can have. Yeah, you're working as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like to that end around production versus like the edit or the design, it's, you know, if somebody comes in and they're like, I know Premiere like the back of my hand, but they can't tell me what a 3-point lighting setup is. It's like, holy crap. Like, I feel like I'm starting from zero. For really like what I would argue is the most important part. Because all the production stuff for me is in front of client. It is like we're setting up lights and cameras and microphones in front of the person who's going to cut our check. So we need to exude like confidence and expertise in that. If it, you know, takes me watching a YouTube video to figure out how to do something technical in Premiere, my client doesn't see that.
Right.
You know, it just
Well,
takes a little bit of time.
Well, yeah, and if you,
But
if you have
the
that
front-end production
footage.
piece
Yeah.
would impact
Right.
my business more from a kind of learning on the job than say the editing side.
Right.
I think the other part of this too is that creative people typically aren't super savvy in science necessarily, they're on the right side. And so I could see why they would potentially not excel as well in math and science as they would because they're creative people.
Right.
And depending to what level of creativity they are, you know, we work with some really, really creative people.
Yeah.
I know for sure wouldn't do well on
Yeah.
some standardized testing. So
Let me ease your mind just a little bit. There are engineering students in here too. There are, yeah, so they're all CTE is being included here. So it's not just the creatives that. This is for all of CNC, all 14 high schools. Yep. Yep. Oh, really? Okay. Okay. You guys get to stick with disciplinary reading. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. The classroom in a book is not easy, yeah.
And when you read technically, you actually have to read slower and more, you know, precise and diligent versus reading your novel. It's a different type of reading and you have to pick up a lot of that and then translate it into an action. So it's a different kind of skill. And I think it's very important.
And if you miss a step.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
doesn't work out.
Yeah. Just. No.
And knowing how to spell is very important.
Yeah.
My son, who I told you guys was in IT, you know, he was a horrible speller in school. He's like, it's fine, I'll be fine. I'm like, well, that's the one thing you can't misspell is in your code, you know, so. You gotta be super diligent about checking the details. Okay, so we all know that, you know, within our disciplines, there is the math, the science, and the reading, writing happening. So I feel like that's a comfortable way to look at, you're already doing it. We just need to be more conscious of, you know, making those opportunities happen for kids, to get them ready for the real world. So we'll go on to some more technical skills real quick for each of the 3 pathways. So we sent out some surveys a few weeks ago, right? Like a few weeks, month ago. And so what we did was we kind of had you rank these technical skills and employability skills for your pathway. So the responses that we got back, we kind of rated them in top 5. And actually, if you want to see the full results, they're right down here. If you wanted to click that, you would see all of the average answers for all of the tasks. Okay. But the top 5 are listed over here on the right. And so there might be one in there that sticks out that you're like, yeah, I disagree. But for the most part, I think that it kind of makes sense to me, you know, in the graphic design field that you would want kids to know how to do all these. For the graphic design technical skills, there are 19 occupational specific skills, such as, so like researching a targeted audience. A graphic designer should kind of know how to do that. There's technology skills, there's 26 of them, such as operating a software system, right? There's 26 work activities, like working on a computer. Okay, so there's all kinds of things. And where we get this from is from the ONET, which is the Occupational Information Network. So if you guys wanted to actually see all of those skills, all those technical skills, you could click on this link here and it would take you there. So just kind of looking at this list here, spam call. Just looking at this list here again, are there any of the top 5 technical skills that you guys would disagree with? And I know we don't see the whole list here. Do you want to actually click on this link down here where I can show you guys what is linked to it? And it'll show you all of them. No? It's like, I don't know why it's tricky. That's photography. Oh, yeah. Nope, that's okay. Yeah. So go back to graphic design. I don't know why it's. Yeah.
Hit the bottom line. Yeah, up a little bit.
But yeah, get.
Back. Too
Okay.
close to
I don't know.
bar.
It's okay. Yeah, I think if you have like the little. Maybe. No, that's not it. It's okay. I don't know why it's not. It's okay. So anyway, once you guys get this, I swear I checked all these links. Maybe, yeah. Maybe it is. But anyway, they're all listed out. Oh, okay, yeah. No, that's gonna go.
That's all right.
That's okay.
We can stick with that.
That's okay. You guys trust me, right? So there's a whole list and it's got the scores, so you can kind of see it's color coded to the top 5. So does anybody have any other like ideas on, you know, what is missing here as far as top 5? I didn't want to list all 19 of them or 13 of them or whatever it was. All kind of agree.
I mean, I don't remember if it was on there, but I feel like somebody said it earlier, or you said it, like packaging the final output.
Yeah, like
Something
the
for you to
deliverables,
deliver.
yeah. Right,
Put
right.
that on.
I don't remember. I don't
Like,
remember.
that's what we-
Yeah,
That's when.
Yeah.
Students will get it.
right. Yeah, because what do you do when you forget to give your client or your printer the fonts or whatever? All right, so we'll move on, just kind of like talking about. Okay, the market data, I guess. So graphic design as an industry is it's in a healthy state. It's going to be increasing 2 to 4% over the next 10 years. Projected to have 22,000 job openings in the next 10 years. Median salary is there. It is, however, one of those jobs that you do have to get a degree in most times. So it is considered a job zone 4. And this is again all on the ONET information network. So if you guys wanted to go check that out and see all the tons of information that there is about the graphic design industry, then there we go. There we go. Oh, dang it. Film and video editing. We have 23 occupational specific skills, such as, reviewing raw footage, technology skills. There are 13, like editing music, and then work activities. There's 26, like organizing and planning. So the top 5 for film and video editing include organizing, editing films, selecting effective shots, trimming film segments, and cutting shot sequence to different angles. So anybody in that industry think that there's something missing, like it could be on the list, but down further. I wonder if this one, it's probably too close on the bottom.
Try.
Sure.
I think you're
There
right.
it
I
is,
think
right
that-
there.
Okay, so that's what it looks like. So you can kind of see that a bunch of them were weighted like very, very important. Okay, so I just picked the top 4. So there are other highly rated ones, right? So I just grabbed the top 5. And then there are things that down the list were kind of judged as being not so important. Of course, they're all important because ONET has determined what skills students should have. Or
Is this just the editing side?
it's just the editing side. Yeah, we did. Yes, I don't doubt it. Yep. If you went to ONET, I bet there is. But for the most part, what we teach in schools is the editing. For the most part, there is some production stuff too. But just to save my brain, but I was like, yeah.
Content creator economy,
Right.
like the production side.
Yes. Okay.
It's my son's 9. It's like I want to be an astronaut or a chemist or a YouTuber. Like those are, but YouTuber's still on.
Yeah.
And that's something that like I'm sure you hear a lot.
Yeah.
I want to be a TikToker. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a content
Right.
creator. But like the same principles that they use in Hollywood, like I see being employed on the nerdy science YouTube channels,
Mhm.
like writing this,
Yeah.
background design.
Gotcha.
I think it's too.
Yeah.
For something, I think that in video and probably all of these, that the ability to be able to communicate face to face.
So like maybe this one, referring with
Yeah, I think that's,
collaborating.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think just the ability, for younger people to be able to talk to one another, be able to talk to a client, to be able to.
Yep.
Explain something is crucial on top of, I mean, it's still a technical skill.
Yeah.
Talking with people.
I'm glad you're saying this because this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah,
Yes, right. That's true. Right. Okay, we can go back, I think. But that's what all of them look like, that link, they will go to that. All right, so the film and video editing, and again, there is production involved, but I just focused on editing just because that's what I'm familiar with. So it has a very bright outlook. Okay, so this industry actually is going to be growing faster than the other two pathways that we're focusing on tonight. So at a 9% employment increase in the next 10 years, which means 5,000 jobs, that's nationwide. It's not a lot, but it's got a small pool right now. It's just going to get bigger at 9%. Again, considerable preparation needed. So you do usually need a degree or significant training to get to tap into the industry. So that again is ONET information. If you guys wanted to click that link, it would take you right to the film and video editors. And I'm sure if you did a search, there would be a production side of that would have a ton of information as well. So we're going to photography. We have 29 occupation specific skills, like using a digital camera. We have technology skills, 16 of them, like using imaging software, 31 work activities, like scheduling your work and your activities. So the top 5 that I grabbed was basically setting up your equipment, adjusting your camera, determining composition, manipulating your digital images, and then enhancing, retouching, etc. So does anybody have anything that they want to say on that? Say you're a commercial photographer. Things that we need to know how to do. Exactly. Yeah. That's okay.
General bill is dropping for you guys checking. Is that are provided to you? It is, yeah. We're supplying, we're a business. I understand that it's like. So. You would have to put that.
So you guys saying, yeah, I mean, you know, someone on the street comes and have like the Cubs logo, or whatever, it's blatant times they're like. Probably not, but I mean, not, and we should, but it maps to that down for it.
It's a good question.
I don't know too many commercial photographers. I know a lot of wedding photographers. Like that's the industry that.
Yeah.
If you're a professional photographer, you.
Yeah.
Pay your
Well,
rent with weddings.
right.
The other stuff.
But I think that kind of falls into the same category. Like if you're making money from your photography, right? You're. Yeah. What's happening? Am I doing that?
No,
Oh, okay.
find out.
Oh, okay. It's like, was I clicking? Yeah, so I think that it is an industry that, well, we'll just go to the next slide here. So it does have a healthy projection of growth, 2 to 4%. And it is the one out of the 3 that has only medium preparation needed. You just need to get training on how to, operate your camera, and hopefully then you have those soft skills that come with, getting clients and all that stuff. But yeah, more information on ONET if you wanted to check that out. So I think that, it's good to see that this whole career cluster has a healthy outlook for growth over the next 10 years. So that was, there aren't any in there that are like, yeah, you shouldn't go into this because it's declining, right? So that's a good thing. So we're going to go on to our next thing. Okay, so essential skills, right? And this is always a hot topic. So once we start talking about this, this conversation could go pretty long here, but this is one of the areas that a lot of students struggle with, the soft skills, the being able to, communicate and all that. So this was another survey that was sent out, and the responses basically brought back these results out of all of the deemed essential soft skills, baseline skills, whatever you want to call it. The 4 that are in yellow are the ones that got scored the more important. Okay. And this is for all 3 of the pathways. Okay. So combined. So all 3 of these creative pathways require an attention to detail, analytical thinking, dependability, and innovation. Okay. So are there any on that list that you guys think should be highlighted as being super important to be able to go into this career field?
Cooperation, probably.
Cooperation. Okay.
A lot of work is solo and kind
Sure.
of self-guided, but there's a lot of working in teams or collaboration.
That's true.
And really, working with a client can be cooperate and can be difficult.
Yeah. And I know that just from my own personal experience, it's difficult sometimes for in graphic design to get kids to team up. So does anybody have any ideas on how we can create cooperative learning opportunities in the classroom in our fields?
I think we try to incorporate it with peer reviews.
Oh, okay. Peer reviews. Good. Yep.
This is not at the intro level class or anything.
Right. That's awesome. Do you have like a class critique, or is it really just like 2 kids trading or?
Down like.
Oh, okay.
And you sit down and eat there. And help give criticism for them.
Oh, that's great.
I also think persistence is a big one. So many of our kids they can't figure it out all the way. So yeah, they end up with thinking was there, but they don't have that stick to it, figure it out.
Yeah.
Just get through an Adobe tutorial because those things are beasts.
Yeah, it's persistent. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, answer them.
right. For them to go back and figure out what step they skipped. Yeah. Yep.
For the cooperation side, a lot of times I'll have an ad agency or the client that is writing the script or kind of, a major component to the creative direction. Then we have another people, the business owner or the people that are acting and, giving those lines back. We have a third person that's leading the production in terms of lighting and sound design and composition. And then we'll have a 4th person that's taking on the bulk of the editing. And like that flow of information needs to make sure that the end product that matches, at least to the satisfaction, the vision of the person that wrote the script.
Right.
And kind of cast the vision at the very beginning of the process. So there's a lot of hands that can kind of touch it as it needs.
You had a group setting, you could have, instead of everyone doing the design and kind of talking afterwards, have assign different roles to a group. Hey, this person's going to be a customer. This person's going to be an art director type person, or hey, this person's going to do the pre-press or the designing, and someone else is going to actually have to follow the ticket, do the production, because those are likely scenarios every day that.
Oh, sure.
Here's a customer that has something, we're coming up with the design, getting it approved. Once it's approved, we're working with someone else to figure out the quote or the yield, and then someone else has to go out and actually do it on a production.
That's
So
awesome.
people could play different roles.
Yeah, to it.
Yeah.
Rather than, and even like make changes. Like,
Yeah.
just make a random change.
Yeah.
Great. Give me some feedback or guidance.
Something else.
I just don't like that.
Just something else. Oh, yeah.
Which I think falls into your adaptability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the self-control.
Oh. Well, that's for the teacher. That's for the teacher. Yeah. So yeah, it is an extensive list of, I think it's all of them are very important, but in our industry, I do agree, persistence and cooperation should definitely be bolded and yellowed. So whenever we have an advisory, and we talk about soft skills, the one soft skill that, well, we call them essential skills now, but the one thing that seems to be a big issue now with students today is communication. They just, especially when we talk post-COVID, pre-COVID, right? Especially post-COVID, they have a difficult time communicating. So my next discussion point, and it's the last one for the night, and then we'll talk about a few more things after this, but how can we get, and it's across the board. Again, it's not just creative kids, it's not just the right brain kids, it's all kids that are even deemed outgoing and extroverts. They're even quieter now. So what kind of opportunities in photography, in film production or editing, in graphic design, can we embed opportunities for kids to practice communicating, whether that's to each other, whether that's to a group, whether that's via email, we could practice, the writing skills at the same time, whatever, but what are some ideas on how we can provide those opportunities for communication, just plain and simple, get these kids to open up?
I think it kind of ties into what we were talking about around cooperation is, you put students in kind of different roles within a typical client process. And it's like, the ad agency that wrote the script, I'm sure has a vision in their head, but they're not there operating the camera.
Right. Yeah.
Like they're not the ones in the room doing the edit, but you still have to meet that expectation. Right?
Education directly in line with stuff. They're kind of, they feel like their design is not step and forward back, but whatever.
Right.
So they feel that barrier, but I'm sure there's 5 other kids that are having the same struggle. So
Yeah.
Maybe you look up the discussion panel, 5 and the thing today and say, hey, what's everyone's struggle? And have them talk about it.
Maybe, having like an unplug exercise where, hey, we're gonna unplug, we're gonna be face to face,
Oh, sure.
communicating with each other. Try getting all the parts, a lot of this stuff has to get, but get a plan or get something done outside of the electronics. Obviously,
Yeah.
before all the remote learning kind of made communication weirder for everybody. Even before then, people were on their phones
Yeah.
quite a bit before
Right.
then, and
Yeah.
even adults, communication's not quite up to par. So,
Yeah.
having an unplugged moment, or getting them in a group, or getting on the phone, maybe even if they'll have their cell phone, even just calling and doing those scenarios of, hey, I'm talking to a client, or I'm
Right.
talking to a supervisor, or we're talking to some director, get on the phone and just do some old school
Phone calls. Yeah.
I think we could do.
Yeah.
Notes. Oh, now. That. I know that all takes. You have to develop some, right? I was trying to keep up projects that we currently fit into that. I think we do a logo project for clients, but if we were to make 4 large groups, each group what they want their logo to be, but then they have to pass it off to a different group. They have to develop a logo based off of what the previous group is. So this was the client. That's the design, and then they all kind of switch their stuff around. So you end up with 4 groups creating different logos and then pass some stuff back. You could have that feedback back and forth, and they have timelines and which is kind of real lines.
Yeah, that needs to go with it, and
That
That's awesome.
It's just like, is there anything about frustrations?
Businesses, say, can you find 4 local businesses that come in and stay? Do a logo for this.
Or production level, we just. Fine.
Say,
Depends on what level you are.
I got you.
The 3 kids that. Real money.
Gotcha.
You had struggles lost money last week. Charging up for forces.
Great.
We learned. So we're not broke.
Fine.
It makes me money.
Brad, if you ever need me to play a difficult customer,
Okay.
anytime.
Taking out a lot of the hard work off of us and we can
I will-
plug and play, but it doesn't always fit with the.
Yeah.
World.
Sure. Mhm.
Uh,
Right. Mhm.
When it fits into the classroom community.
Yeah.
Kids to have that plan and make the changes, take the feedback.
Yes, and I will talk about that in a minute here. So if anyone doesn't know what Kara's talking about, we'll talk about the CNC graphics competition that we have. Any other comments on how we can get kids to communicate like designers, like photographers, like film producers?
I like the idea of breaking them up into groups. And
Yeah.
having them kind of pass ideas back and forth,
Yeah.
and it does create opportunity for miscommunication, and then you have to resolve that. And like
Mhm.
that's
Real life.
That's real
Yeah,
life.
for sure.
Like,
For sure, yeah. Should be on there.
or having to explain your direction or explain
Yeah.
your vision to somebody who isn't necessarily agreed
Right. Oh,
Like,
yeah, that's
all the
tough.
time.
That's tough. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, but-
so true.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
most of the time working with fears.
Because in real life, you don't get to pick who you work with. Yeah. All right. So we'll move on, and I'm kind of guessing that just looking at the clock, we'll get out of here a little early tonight. But if the discussion continues and until 6, that's cool too. So ISB has a list, and that's again the Illinois State Board of Education. They have a list of competencies for these creative career paths. So as far as like the creative process, and so there are a few teachers in here that also teach traditional art. The processes are the same, whether you're using digital media or traditional media. And that is the creating, the presenting, the performing, producing, responding, connecting, and doing the investigation and research. So if you were to click on this center block, you'll see the actual ISB document that explains what each of these is. But basically, we have 2 different kinds of ways to work in these creative careers. We have to be able to process and come up with ideas, but then we also have to put our business hats on and be able to do project management, keeping track of things, right? We have to be able to use technology. We have to be able to do brand management, right? We have to be able to create those things. And then, of course, we also have to deal with other humans while we're doing all this other stuff. So the competencies are really those skills or those things that the behaviors, the attitudes that help you do things successfully or efficiently. Okay, so you can learn how to, design a logo, but if you can learn how to design a logo and you're really quick at it, and you're really efficient at it, then that becomes a competency. So there's a list of those in that bar there, if you were to click on that. So that's just, I think it's interesting because I bet you if I looked at any other career path, this whole process part wouldn't be there. Okay, so we have to kind of use both sides of our brain if we want to be successful in these career paths. Because we're not only doing the creative thinking part, but we're also getting the business done, kind of part. So I feel like, and this is maybe I'm biased here, but I feel like what we do is just so involved from beginning to end. You know, we're using the right brain, left brain, all at the same time. So does anybody have any comments about the things that the State Board of Education has decided? These are the things that we want to strive to, you know, get kids to be able to do so that they are efficient and they are successful in these career paths. Oh, there you go. The cheap, good, or fast. Yeah, yeah. All right. So that is basically my presentation, and then we can just kind of sit around and talk. But first, I want to talk to you guys about the Design the Design competition in collaboration with Rock Valley. Thank you, Scott, for helping me out again this year. We do have a student design competition happening right now. It's pretty low key because I've kind of kicked it out to the schools to design our new t-shirt for this year. And so those designs are due in November. And then in February, we actually will have collected design clients, I guess you can call it. So we reach out to all of our industry partners and we ask them, hey, do we have any kind of design jobs that are, you know, entry level kind of design jobs that a high school design student could do. So we get things like brochures, logos, business card design, letterhead design, digital ads, you know, things like that, for them to work with. So we get the, you know, company logo, we get whatever information they have, like the size, the deliverable, whatever format it needs to be in at the end. And then those are the things that happen in the spring. Now, last year we did this part only, and we did it in the fall. And then we had a final presentation night at Rock Valley in the atrium at the Student Center, where students' work had been basically, critiqued throughout the process. So we had 3 stages. We had a sketch stage, and then we had professionals comment on, okay, I like your concept. I like where you're going with this. I see that you're doing this or that. And then they were to do a rough draft from that sketch concept. And then they got a little bit more feedback. And then they submitted a final design. The finalists, there were 15 finalists that came to the final event, which was in December last year. And they had to actually get on the stage, show their sketch to rough draft to final concept, and explain their process and explain why they made the changes that they made. And then we had like a live judging kind of session. And then we awarded 4 different categories. I think it was 4, maybe it was 5. I don't remember. But it was a really cool experience because not only did they have to get up and actually present to a room of people, but throughout the process, they got to communicate back and forth with the professionals, designers. Okay. So it was kind of a cool thing. So right now they're doing things on their own. They're going to submit those designs to us. We're going to basically hopefully have some professional designers help us judge and pick the t-shirt. Those t-shirts will then be presented to give to the finalists in the spring competition. So that's the whole spiel there. So I am in search of some good judges. So if anybody would like to lend their eyes and their design thoughts to that, I am open. So if you know somebody, send them my way. So that is that. Does anybody have any questions about that or anything else tonight?
Kids have questions. How many colors could it be?
It has to be one color because we cannot afford multiple screens. So it's one color. Yep, that's our only logo, which just as a heads up, this competition was, yes, in the future, Cianci will be a client to get a new logo. Yes. That I'm building up to that. But yeah, they can't take apart the logo. So it is what it is. Okay, yep, yeah. Absolutely, yes. Mhm. Yep. Yeah. The,
Provided a file for a t-shirt.
yeah, yeah.
T-shirt,
Um,
like a vector looking. t-shirt.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
wanna put on
oh
the
yeah, yeah.
actual,
They want to get a photo and what. That's totally fine. Yep. Oh, nice. It's waving. That's cool. It'll be science in Illustrator, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So anyway, so that's going on. I welcome you guys to stick around, ask questions, talk to each other about ideas that you might have. Usually we do this in like a, you know, more of a circle so we can all see each other, but this I think worked out pretty well. Everybody was really participatory, so thank you. So that's basically our first advisory for the year. So thank you all for coming out. We got some really great feedback for teachers. We got some really great feedback for employers. So I think that, you know, this is an exciting cluster of, you know, careers here. And I'm just, I mean, it's my favorite, you know, it's no secret, but yeah, so I appreciate, you know, Carrie and Brad and Becky, thank you for having us out. You know, I know that the principal was out sick tonight, but you know, he'll hear about that later. So, anyway, thank you all for coming out and, drive safe home or stick around a little bit, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Recording this.